Now, in this demo, the second part of this demo, we're going to apply and see how these technologies can be applied to application lifecycle paradigms, such as, for instance, Canary upgrades. We're going to take this application that you saw this morning, two different versions of it, the purple one, which is the initial, and the blue one. We're going to see how we are going to use the same CI/CD system we saw this morning to deploy the two different versions of the application. The concept of a Canary upgrade is that we don't upgrade at once all of our user base from a release N of a given application to release N plus one. We're going in parallel to release N, gradually introduce release N plus one, deploy this release to a specific group of users based on grouping or geographical locations or type of users and so on and so forth. And based on the feedback we get regarding release N plus one, gradually increase the traffic away from release N to release N plus one. And we're going to be using some of the flexible tools and concepts that Kubernetes gives us, such as decoupling the service from the backing pods where the software runs, etc., etc. So before we get started, let's make sure that the community application is not deployed right now. So we have an empty environment, okay? This is the URL that we showed you in the previous app, and obviously there's nothing running here. Let's connect to our Kubernetes cluster to test that and to make sure that we don't have anything in the environment. So we're connected to the shell environment, and I shifted to the other persona, the SRE. We're connected to this Kubernetes cluster, and as you can see, there is nothing running here. Okay, so we have our two nodes, and we just have the Kubernetes API in the default namespace. Let's put a watch on the resources created in the default namespace to see how this will go. As we deploy our infrastructure. Okay, so watch kubectl get all. This window will also help me to run a very handy test script that will interrogate the web page and get back with interesting information with us. But before we get there, let's get back to the CI/CD system that we used in the previous demo. This pipeline here is the pipeline we use to showcase the developer laptop source code checking, automated build and release in Kubernetes. Now we're going to have a look at something a bit more consistent, beefier, if you will, the Canary upgrade pipeline. So we have this pipeline broken in three different stages. The first stage is the prepare the environment. We're going to deploy on an empty environment. We're going to deploy our release N of an application. That's the objective of this stage. The second stage is once we have release N, when we're happy, we're going to deploy a smaller portion, a release N plus one. We're going to test it, have a look, and if we're happy with that, we're going to approve a full rollout of release N plus one in production. So all of these steps are basically are mainly implemented on Kubernetes deployment. So I'm deploying the service for this MR community first, decoupled from the pods themselves that I'm deploying as a replication controller object in Kubernetes. I'm going to deploy 8 release N pods. I'm going to showcase how can we update distributed version control in collaboration systems such as Slack. Just a slight update that will come very handy when people are developing in teams. And once we have the initial system deployed, we're just going to put a user operation to check that everything's okay and we have the EMR application in its original purple release. Then we're going to deploy a second replication controller that we are going to call new. It's a group of pods. We're going to deploy only 2 of them. 2 because then we will have 10 pods serving this application in production and serving release N. 8 serving release N and 2 serving release N plus 1. These 2 different deployments will be using these 2 different tags in our container registry that we showed you in the previous demo. Yeah, so 0.2 is the purple one, and obviously the latest will be the newer one. And the other element I want to show you also in Git is that very much like what we're applying to the application code using control systems iteration. And in Git, basically, we're applying the same concept to the infrastructure description, the Kubernetes YAML file. So for instance, the replication controller here that I'm deploying points to my GitLab server source control and can be seen over here. Okay, so not only my source code developer, but also my SRE over here, Alex, is using Git to modify his infrastructure files, the replication controllers, the deployments, etc., etc. Okay. So I guess that everything I wanted to show you. So let's get started and let's execute this pipeline. A couple of inputs if needed, if we want to add some options, deploy proxies or instrumentation. And not for the sake of this demo, we'll keep things simple. So we started the execution. And it has triggered here. So let's have a look and see what's happening. So we are preparing the test environment. So again, we're going to deploy the initial service and then the replication controllers, 8 pods. And we should see something coming up here. Okay, let's have a look at what our kubectl watch has told us. Oh, look at this. 8 pods have been deployed already with a replication controller in the desired state, 8, and an IP address that got assigned on the external load balancer. So I will come to Bulletin Board, and it didn't wait for me. As you can see, it refreshed its page, and we have the Bulletin Board deployed in its initial purple version. We're happy with this, so we're going to go ahead and approve the user operation. The initial environment is deployed. Let's have a look at the Slack message that we got. Indeed, yeah, I missed the notification. So the environment is prepared, and we can move forward and deploy the N+1 release and your application controller with 2 pods. So if we come back here, we should see in a couple of seconds the addition of 2 pods. As you can see, they're creating here. That's perfect. So I've appended them. So very sophisticated, yeah. Appended them with a new suffix. Still the same IP address. So one interesting thing here is if we run this test script to check on the type of responses served, as you can see, we have our web page with a special grep coming back to us, and it is showing this nice distribution of traffic between the new version in blue and the old version in purple. And it's quite remarkable because we can see that the 20-80% distribution is respected. Every 4 requests served by version N, I get 1 request served by version N+1. We're going to let the script run, and what we're going to see is, obviously, after we move fully to N+1, we will only be getting back blue responses. Now, let's try to see if we're lucky here and if we can get the web page now in blue for real. Let me refresh a couple of times. And if that doesn't work, it's okay. We're going to try to get this in a incognito window, maybe. So let me see if we open an incognito window in Chrome. If we get a blue page, yeah, there you go. So we're happy. Okay, the application is served in 2 different shapes. And again, how do we direct the traffic? How do we apply that? There are so many different technologies for this. It could be, end user based. It can be end user location based. We can do a couple of things around that. But for now, let's keep things simple. And let's come here and have a look at the execution of this pipeline. We will see that it has deployed the Canary, and it told us go and check the new version of the app. We're quite happy with this new version of the app. So we're going to go ahead and fully roll it out. So again, remember, so that goes through a user operation. We probably got another notification in Slack, by the way. So Canary got deployed at a 20% rate in production. We've checked it, fair enough, we're happy. Let's go for it. We approve over here. And what you will see here is a gradual modification of these replication controllers. So a lot of them are being terminated, the initial ones, and additional new ones are being deployed. And we're going to end with 10 new pods serving the new application. Let's see what happened with the testing script. For some reason it hung. That's not a problem. Let's launch it again. And perfect. Kubernetes is so flexible without any impact on the end user. We have shifted gradually all of our traffic from version N to version N plus 1. So everything is looking good here, and I don't need to hide behind an incognito window. If I refresh my page, I can see the new application released on the same URL. So the execution of this pipeline is all green and good. And we get finally to finish the last notification in Slack to say that we finished the Canary upgrade. With this, thank you for listening.